Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Fitzgibbons, and I'm from the Federation of Protestant Welfare Agencies. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Union Settlement Association, David Nascenti, and Maria Alejandro and her staff for providing the space and assistance here for holding this press conference today. I'd like to thank our elected officials, seniors, and senior service providers for speaking and being here to advocate on such a critical issue, the preservation of Title 20 funding for senior centers. This is no joke. It's a big deal. Our seniors' well-being is at stake with this proposed reduction. I'd like to also thank Goddard Riverside seniors for attending today, as well as seniors from Church on the Hill and the Corsi Senior Center. As many of you know, the governor's proposed budget includes a change in policy to redirect $25.2 million in federal Title 20 funds from New York senior centers to be used for adult protective service and domestic violence programs. This change would result in the closure of as many as 1/3 or 110 of our New York City senior centers, impacting some of our poorest communities. The centers provide critical services such as hot meals, case management, and companionship to some of the city's most vulnerable New Yorkers. In recent developments on the issue, the Senate has voted to fully restore the Title 20 funding, and the Assembly has voted to reinstate 75% of the funding. We need the governor and our state legislators to ensure the funds for Title 20 remain for our centers. We're honored to have with us Assemblyman Jeffrey Dinowitz, Chair of the Assembly Aging Committee, and a staunch advocate for the elderly. I would like to invite Assemblyman Dinowitz up to say a few words.
Thank you. We know that this year we face probably the toughest budget that we have seen in decades. We're in the worst economic crisis probably since the Great Depression. The governor has put forth a budget which tries to address the state's $9 billion plus deficit. And we know there are going to be cuts in the budget, but there are just some things that we cannot afford to touch. And one of them is the Title 20 money that goes to the New York City senior centers. Now, the cut that Kathy had mentioned could result in the closing of over 100 senior centers. And you know, I was trying to think of how that would affect just my own district. We have a senior center in my district, which is not the biggest center, and could very well be the target for one of those cuts. But it not only affects the center and the people who go to that senior center, it also affects the building that it's housed in and can have a ripple effect in the community, because that particular senior center is paying rent to a synagogue, which happens to be kind of on the edge of being able to stay or not be able to continue. And if the senior center goes, the entire synagogue may lose its property, and that has an additional effect on the community. So when we're talking about closing senior centers, we're talking about much more than the senior centers themselves. But in the case of the senior centers, how many of the elderly in New York City will not be able to go to another senior center? You know, last year when the mayor wanted to do his consolidation plan, they said, well, the seniors can go to the next senior center, the one that's nearest. That's not always so easy for everybody. Some people can do it, some people cannot do it. What it would inevitably result in is more people being shut in, stay at home, not being able to socialize with other people. It would have a terrible effect in New York City. So we are fighting hard to not only restore most of the money, but restore all of the money on the state level. The governor is trying to do what's right by balancing the budget, but in this case, he's made a dreadful mistake. The Assembly, in its initial budget resolution, restores much of the money, but not all of the money. We have to restore all of the money. Last week, I sent a letter to our Speaker urging that a full restoration be made, and virtually every member of the New York City delegation to the Assembly signed that letter in support of this. And that's unusual because we rarely get so many members of the Assembly signing on to something like that. So we are fighting to get a full restoration of the Title 20 money for the city. And you know, I don't want to see people pit against each other. I don't want to see advocates against domestic violence, advocates for adult protective services, pitted against advocates for senior centers. And the way the governor has structured this cut, that's exactly what it does. We cannot allow that to happen because those are important priorities also. But as chairman of the Aging Committee, my number one priority is getting this money restored, and that's what I'm going to fight to do, and hopefully we will be successful. Myself, Senator Diaz in the Senate, and the governor working together can accomplish a full restoration. And I know on the city level we have a strong advocate, and I hope that in a few weeks we can say that we won this very important battle.
Muy buenos días a todos. Quisiéramos darle la bienvenida y decirles que estamos aquí luchando para conseguir que tengamos el budget, el dinero que necesitamos para correr los senior centers. Este año tenemos muchos problemas y tenemos aquí unas personas que vienen muy dedicadas a crear y asegurar que el dinero que necesitamos para mantener los centros esté aquí, para que podamos servir no solo a un centro, sino a todos los centros de la ciudad. Muy especialmente queremos que si este centro es necesario, que también podamos tener los centros de otras áreas que necesitamos en la comunidad. Muchas gracias por estar aquí y cualquier otra cosa que necesiten preguntar, por favor, levante la mano. Gracias.
Dinowitz. The aging community and the residents of New York City are fortunate to have the dedication and commitment to the issues from Councilmember Jessica Lappin. Councilmember Lappin recently oversaw and ran a very successful press conference at City Hall to help save our centers, and is with us today to say a few words and be with us to advocate for these funds.
Good morning. I don't think I need to tell anybody in this room how important our senior centers are. They're important because of the meals they provide, but they're much more than that. They're places to come and play dominoes, or take a Tai Chi class, or go to the supermarket together. They are part of the fabric of our city, and one of the most important social safety nets that we can provide. And the cuts that the governor proposed are not just tinkering at the margin. It would be a complete evisceration in services to seniors in the city. Closing a third of our centers would totally change the kind of city we are and the way we treat our older citizens in a way that is not acceptable to those of us who are here today. So on the council level, I've been trying to organize my colleagues. As Kathleen mentioned, I chair the Aging Committee to try and fight these cuts. Assemblymember Dinowitz has been leading the charge in the Assembly and was able to get 75% of the money put back. Senator Diaz was able to get 100% put back in the State Senate. And I think a lot of that is because of all of your hard work. I know people have been writing letters, have been making phone calls, have been working very hard to tell their state legislators that this needs to be a priority. So we're very close. We've made some progress, but we have a little bit further to go. So we think we're here today to say we need to keep up the fight. We're not sure for how long, hopefully not too much longer, but by working together, we can tell the governor and Assemblymember Dinowitz's colleagues that this has got to be put back in the final budget, and we need to save our senior centers. Thank you.
Muy importante lo que nos dice la cabeza del council de esta comunidad, no de esta comunidad, de esta ciudad. Ella nos dice que sería un problema quitarle la comida a las personas que verdaderamente la necesitan. Sería un problema que quitáramos, aunque fuera un cuarto de los senior centers, porque eso nos quitaría mucho de lo que la ciudad es como un laberinto. Si el laberinto se une, podemos tener centros y podemos atender a nuestra gente. Pero si no se une, entonces perdemos mucho de lo que ya tenemos. Gracias.
I'd like to thank Councilmember Lappin for being with us today. Marie, you might as well just come back up. The Director of Senior Services for Union Settlement Association and who oversees this senior center. I thought maybe if you would say a few words about the importance of the centers within this community.